Hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you guys joined me today. For those of you that are just joining us, I'm Angela Brown, and I run one of the largest training companies in the world for house cleaners. I'm the founder of I have discovered that sometimes when I go into a house, I am, caught off guard because I've been cleaning the same house over and over and over again. And I think I know the house and I think I know the family. But sometimes, and you might have found this to be true for yourself, you discover that once you arrive at a house, the energy is a little bit different. And you're like, something's not quite right, but you don't know what it is. And you don't know if somebody's died or if somebody's sick or if somebody's cheating on their spouse or if one of the teenage kids is acting out. And as a house cleaner, because we're inside people's homes, we have to navigate those weird and uncomfortable moments, but we don't have any new facts to go off of. We walk in and we're kind of hit cold, like, whoa, wait a second, something is different. And our spidey senses go up. And we want to know what is different and how do I respond or how do I navigate this situation? So I'm super excited about today's topic because today we're going to be talking about an inner guide that comes from being awake. And I know that many of us use our inner guide for a variety of different moments in life, whether it's our personal lives or our professional lives, or if it's in helping us guide families. As parents, we have lots of responsibilities, and sometimes we don't have all the facts, right? What we're told is not necessarily what's happening. So I'm super excited about today's session. Today, we're working from The Insights and Wisdom of Omuugn. This is our Saturday project. This is the book that we're going through. Today, we're talking about awakening. And this is page 49 through, we've got insights. We've got a really awesome stanza here, which is very inspirational. But we're going over to page 57. So we've got about 10 pages that we're covering this week on awakening. And to help me through this is Omuugn himself, a wise and wonderful sage that people have come all over the country for ideas and suggestions on how to raise their families, how to get guidance. He's raised 19 of his own children, and he's going to share with us some of the answers that he has developed over the years on awakening and how we use that in our personal lives. So please help me welcome author of this book. And you guys know him as Omuugn. I know him as my dad. Please help me welcome Omuugn. How are you today?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm very good. Give us a quick update since we spoke to you last week. I'm curious to know what's happening in your personal life, and then we'll jump on over into awakening.
My personal life is always about gardening and growing things, producing most of the foods that we eat, and we're just entering into our harvest season. We're getting a lot of cucumbers and leafy greens out of the garden, a lot of tomatoes. So I'm just doing a lot of gardening, and I'm writing. I'm just finishing a couple more book projects, and that keeps me on my toes. So,
Well, and I know on my end that one of the things I'm working on, you speak about book projects. One of the things that I'm working on this week is I'm reviewing some of the 30-day challenges that you guys are putting together on the topics that are inside this book. And I'm really excited about that because I know lots of people are looking for just a little daily boost. And that little daily boost pop into your email with just a little simple to do on how to develop these concepts that you're talking about that will help us live a life of passion and leave a legacy. So I've really enjoyed going over those this week, and I'm just super excited about all the stuff that you're working on. So thank you for
it's
sharing that
exciting.
with us. All right, so today we're delving into awakening. And if I could, the first of your book here in the topic on awakening, it says the idea that awakening to spiritual realities and becoming aware of the many different possibilities that surrounds us is an exciting and hope-filled endeavor. Share with me a little bit about that and how it can breed hope in our lives.
Well, from the beginning of time, people have always been searching for how they fit into the reality of things, who they really are, where they came from, what their purpose is. And so awakening is awakening to the spiritual reality behind everything that we see and experience. For example, a lot of religions began with someone having an awakening experience of some type, and it's just an exciting place to be. It's a place of limitless possibilities. It's where we get excited and where we look forward to things. There's more to life than the material things that we see and feel, and it's driven people to practices like prayer and meditation, pondering, using our intuition, like you mentioned, going into a house. So yeah, it's a broad field that's really exciting. It's really our connection with deity, with the creation blueprint. It's the realm of angels and higher dimensional beings, and a lot of people approach that in a lot of different ways, but it's the reality behind our life experience that's really exciting. It's a world of energy and coherent light and sacred geometry and all kinds of things that we won't have time to get into today in depth, but uh, the field is limitless. The possibilities are limitless, and it's really an exciting place to be.
I think one of the first exciting moments I had was a place of desperation. I was really frustrated in my life and my business was struggling and I didn't really know what to do next. I felt kind of trapped and maybe stuck in a rut. And I discovered a program and it was called The Artist's Way. And it was a program that basically has you get up every morning and you write what's called the morning pages. And as you write, ideas come to you. And at first, I just puked all my anger and frustrations and stuff. Like, here's what's in my head. Like, I just puked. And I did it every single day. Like, I just followed the system. And it was about 3 weeks in, I kind of had puked out all of the gunk that was in my life and my brain. And I kind of hit a moment of awakening. And it was the first time that I really got really excited about, hey, wait a second, there's something else going on behind all the gunk. And once I removed the gunk and I got it out on paper and I wasn't evaluating the gunk, but I was like, hey, here it is. It's on paper. It's not going anywhere. If I need it, it's still there. But now I can actually focus on something else. And I think that was a turning point in my life where I started then becoming aware that there is something deeper and something that I have the power to tap into. So I'm curious to know. I think in many different religions, we see this in like monks, for example, that will go sit on a mountainside and they meditate and they pray. I think there are a variety of different ways to become enlightened or to become awake. What have you found as one of the most productive ways for someone like yourself?
Oh, for me, it's a combination of things. I'm exploring new ideas all of the time. When I encounter a new idea, I like to experiment to see how it really impacts me. And through studies, I've been to seminars and conferences and all kinds of things that kind of awaken our intuitive process. Uh, One of the fascinating things was a work done by a Japanese scientist by the name of Masaru Emoto, that you may be familiar with, who did experiments with water crystals. And he would take pictures of a frozen piece of water, and then he would take that same water in the liquid state, and he would expose it to like a negative word, like hate, and then he would rephotograph the crystal, and the crystalline structure would have broken down.
Mm.
And then he would take the same water and he would write love on the container. And after a couple hours or so, he would freeze the water into a crystalline structure again and photograph it with an electron microscope. And a beautiful crystalline pattern would emerge. And he kind of demonstrated that water is really kind of a miraculous thing because we're mostly water. Our bodies are like 70% water. And so there's a reality that's operating in the background that influences things to a degree that we don't even imagine. If we're exposed to, for example, beautiful music, there's a change that takes place in us and takes us into a different realm, if you will, if you're listening to something that's really dissonant. And he did this with water. He would put the jar of water between two speakers, and he would play like heavy metal music that was very, very dissonant. And the crystalline structure of the water would break down into a conglomerate of nothing. But if he played really beautiful music, the crystalline structure would form again and be a beautiful crystalline pattern. So these things are operating in the background of our lives that we're not really aware of a lot of times. We're kind of aware of our consciousness, but there's a subconsciousness that's working. And they say that our belief system is reviewed by our subconscious every few seconds, the entirety of our belief system. And I think it's important to realize that everyone has their own particular belief system. And so there are things that impact that belief system on a subtle, spiritual, multidimensional level that's really profound. And sometimes we get in the habit of going through life habitually without really stopping to consider the realities of why we do things and what we're doing and the impact that it has in our lives and the people around us. So it's profound.
I want to go back to a second for growing up. And I know growing up in our home, and for those of you that are just joining us, hi, I'm glad that you're here. BB says this is very insightful. So thank you for your comments and thank you for being here today. Growing up in our home, there was a focus from a very early age, as long as I can remember, that we had a study class, which was designed to calm down us from the outside world, for us to kind of ground ourselves and to come back to center and to focus on our inner guidance and also learn about spirituality and enlightenment and characteristics that would help us become better people and leave the world a better place. And I'm curious to know, at what point of your life did you discover that there was this awakening and that we could tap into our inner guidance and we could make ourselves better just by some of the, like you said, some of the environmental issues that we create and the things that we do in our lives to put us on the best path for that?
Well, it was very incremental for me. I sort of had a very inquisitive mind. I was an avid reader, and I wanted to know what truth really was. And so I started at a young age of searching for truth. And my dad worked in a mill, and they made some pamphlets available for the workers, and they were on all kinds of different subjects. But I started at a very young age of taking those pamphlets and kind of picking from them some of the salient ideas, the most important things to remember. And I started doing book reports on those little pamphlets. And then as I read books, after I got out of the Hardy Boys series and the Mowgli series and those fun series that kids like to read, I kind of gravitated toward the self-improvement, the nonfiction things that I would study. And again, I would keep doing the book reports and looking at ideas, and it just put me in a frame of mind where I realized that a lot of things were really important and a lot of things weren't. And it was important to make a distinction. And we should spend our time doing the things that are really meaningful and important. And so as we started a family, I tried to incorporate those important things into our family processes. And for the most part, I think it turned out pretty well.
I will agree to that. Yes, thank you. I know that my upbringing has put me on a course where I've used it almost every single day. And I do know that as a house cleaner, there's a lot of psychology, and there's a lot of interaction with customers, and there's a lot of relationship building, and there's a lot of negotiation. And then there's a lot of stuff that you can't put your finger on, but yet you are expected to be able to stand and deliver in that moment. And I know that multiple times I have relied on an inner guide where I didn't have the facts or I didn't know what to do next. I remember a scenario, and this is just with my own sister. My youngest sister is Down syndrome. And I was required to take her one day. I was flying her across the country. She was going to go hang out with another sister of mine. And I grew up in a home without her. I was already moved away from home by the time she was born. So I didn't have the skills growing up to be able to know how to communicate best with her. And I always felt kind of at a disadvantage and kind of like I'm awkward here because I don't have the skill set I need to really communicate with her on an important level. And I remember the day I was supposed to travel across the country with her, she'd been having epileptic seizures. And my heart breaks because I'm going to be responsible for traveling with her. And if she has an incident, I don't know how to cope. I don't have the right skills. I have not been trained in that area. And so I felt at a real disadvantage. And I don't like that feeling because I'm usually a person that has solutions and I have answers. And I started a conversation with her and we were not connecting at all. We were just not connecting. And I realized I'm trying to connect with her based on my logical approach of how I should communicate with her. And I realized in that moment, I'm doing what Angela wants to do, but this is not the right approach. And so I had to lean into the higher version of myself. And I asked her out loud, I said, I'm at a loss here. I don't know how to communicate with you. And we got off on the wrong foot. And this is not working. And I said, can I lean on the highest version of you to guide the highest version of me in how to communicate with you best so that we can travel across the country with each other and that you don't have any epileptic seizures while we're on this journey together, because I don't have the right skill set and I want what's best for you and I want to take care of you, but I don't want to put you in harm's way because I'm ill-equipped. Would that be fair? And the version of her that is just so buoyant and, energetic, she's like, sure, I'll help you with that. I was like, great, that's awesome. And the rest of our time together was absolutely beautiful. It was one of the most memorable days that I've ever had. And certainly one of the most joyous times I've ever spent with her is traveling with her. And she was completely easy to get along with. She didn't have any health issues while I was with her. And she completely communicated with me on a level where she was guiding me on how to communicate with her. And I completely saw that as a moment of awakening where I realized Angela, don't have the skills and the ability to reach her with what I know from the logical world that I live in. Does that make sense?
That brings up a couple of interesting points. It takes us from our conscious to our subconscious to our superconscious or our higher self. We actually have access to information that goes way beyond what we normally perceive. For example, our body is always taking care of us. I think the liver has over 450 different functions in the body. And we probably only know what 2 or 3 of them are. But there's a higher intelligence that's actually guiding all of those processes. There's a higher intelligence that heals us when we get wounded. We don't have to worry about how things are going to come together because our body does that from this higher intelligence. When we were conceived, there was a higher intelligence that put us all together, formed all of our organs and all of our glands and all of the systems that work in us. An intelligence that's way beyond our capacity to understand. And that intelligence is available to us all of the time. That's why a lot of the spiritual practices revolve around breathing techniques, coming under full control of our senses, and then meditating and going into a state of consciousness where we're in tune with that higher intelligence. And so, yeah, in this situation with Joanna, if your higher intelligence could communicate with hers, that's an ideal situation. A lot of times people would just become frustrated and sort of fight against the situation. But if you can flow with the situation and utilize intuition and our higher sensitivities, it's really can be very helpful.
Well, you just mentioned the breathing techniques. I'm curious, is there a certain way that you can put yourself in the best position to access your internal guide or being awake in an awakened state? Does it require binaural beats, or does it require certain breathing techniques, or like you mentioned earlier, hydration? What do you need to do to get in the flow of that?
Well, people are different, and so what works for one may not be as effective for another. That's why there are a lot of different techniques. There are binaural beats. There are solfeggio frequencies that you can attune to. There are different meditative states that you can attain. Some of the breathing techniques is a rhythmical breathing. Uh, I read a book on breathing that has over like 300 different kinds of breathing.
Hmm.
Breathing gets really involved, using different nostrils and how to synchronize your nostrils, and where you breathe in for like 7 slow counts, and then you hold your breath for 7 slow counts, and then you exhale for 7 slow counts, and then you don't breathe for 7 slow counts. And if you do that, you'll breathe like twice a minute. It's a very slow rhythmical breathing. And there's a fellow by the name of Wim Hof who's
Mm.
kind of famous for, he's called the Iceman.
He's made
And
me take cold showers every day. Yes, I know
yes,
him well. Pat makes fun of me. He's like, "Not the cold showers again." I'm like, "Yes, it starts my every day in the right mood."
his breathing technique is to breathe deeply and rapidly as fast as you can for like 30 breaths. And then you pause for a moment, and then you do 30 more. And then you pause for a moment, and then you do 30 more. And by the time you're finished, your body is tingling and you're oxygenated really well, and you just come alive. So there are a lot of different techniques to access different states of being. And it's important, I think, to find what works for us personally
Mhm.
and find out where we're motivated and what we're passionate about, because that's kind of a key to the course that we should pursue.
I know a lot of runners will call it the zone. And as a runner myself, the zone is a really happy place to be, where you get out and you're one with nature and you're by yourself. And if you don't have headphones on and you're just out with nature and you're out running, what happens is a lot of oxygen, like you said, is flowing through your body, and there's a lot of movement, and movement is magical. And so as you're out there running and you're one with nature and you're breathing, you are kind of in a heightened state. And then you kind of click into this zone. And it's almost like being in a hypnotic state where you're running and all of a sudden your mind opens to creativity and you start thinking of different things that maybe you haven't resolved in your sedentary life. And so just to get out and to get moving, I find enlightening, and it makes me really in an awakened or heightened state where it's my endorphins have kicked in and I feel fantastic and I'm creative and I'm like, whoa, I'm so glad I got up this morning, and isn't the sun just beautiful? And I start noticing things I didn't normally notice. Like I'll see a tree and I'll say, look at that tree. It's perfectly symmetrical. It's perfectly shaped. And then just little things like that that will pop out at me. Then I'm like, whoa, whoa, oh, this is awesome. And I feel fantastic.
Yeah, it puts us in tune with the spirit. There's a spirit of the creator that pervades nature and the world around us. And a lot of times we live our lives out of harmony, out of sync with that spirit. And if you can get into that zone where you become aware and you see how everything works and how everything is interconnected, it opens up life to a whole new set of possibilities. A lot of times we grow up in a culture or a tradition and we become habituated to that culture or tradition. and we start living mindlessly. And the opposite of that is mindfulness, where we become aware of where we are and what's happening around us and within us, and how we're affecting other people and the energy in the environment that we're in. And I probably shouldn't get too far into this, but there's actually a group of people who are trained by our military who, if there's a rioting crowd, they're trained to actually move through the crowd inconspicuously and change the energy in that crowd to alleviate violence and different things that are building up in the crowd. And they can dissipate that energy and create a different scenario, a different reality. And so the more we understand of how things work in this ultimate reality, the more it can be utilized for all different kinds and types of situations. It can diffuse our personal conflicts with siblings or within a family unit. It brings us to a state of reason, and where we're able to sit down and with tolerance look at someone else's belief system and try to understand where they're coming from and develop empathy and different parts of our character. That was the essence of this whole book, in fact, was instead of being a singularity, we're actually a composite of a whole bunch of different characteristics. And we don't take the time to really look at the characteristics of which we are composed. And so we don't really understand ourselves or how we operate, how we think. For example, we went through anger management. And anger management, or anger, is a characteristic that needs to be very well controlled. And we need to understand where that originates and how it can be utilized or avoided, or abundance we went through, and different characters. When I wrote down the characteristics that we have, I came up with 158 different characteristics. And it's very seldom that we actually sit down and look at each characteristic and say, how am I doing in this area? Realizing that behind that characteristic, there's a spiritual reality. There's something that connects with eternal or universal laws and foundational principles. And each one of our characteristics should be founded upon those laws and principles for our life to be really successful and for us to mature. We need to mature in all of the different characteristics of which we are composed.
Oh, no pressure there.
It's a challenge. And it's connecting with that spiritual reality that we're trying to awaken to, that guides us and leads us in all of the insights that we gain in all of those areas. So awakening is a very broad thing that happens to us in all the different characteristics and all of the different facets of our nature. And it's really important that we take the time to do that. A lot of times we just get up and our days are all the same. We have certain habitual things that we do. We check the news, we go to work, we do this and that. But we don't really take the time. We talk about exercising. We talk about meditating. We talk about spiritual practices. But a lot of times they're kind of pushed to the side or on the back burner. And what we feel is more critical are the things that are pressing us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're finding out that pressing us is producing stress. And the stress produces a lot of unfavorable conditions in our bodies and in our systems. So we just need to be in tune with a lot of things that we're not normally.
We call that the mom syndrome. Mom syndrome, MOM. Moms do this a lot. They take care of everyone else, but they take care of themselves last. And they make sure that the family has everything they need. And then mom never takes care of herself and there's nobody taking care of mom. This happens so often, especially with lots of our house cleaners, where they go out and they help lots of homeowners, and they clean their houses and they make their lives look spectacular. And then they go home to their own house. And they're just like, I just don't have it to give. I just can't clean my own house. And nobody's paying them and nobody's complimenting them. There are no kudos for cleaning their own house. They're like, I just can't do it today. And then they throw something on the floor, they leave clothes on the chair or whatever, and it just kind of piles up and it just becomes this state of disarray. And they know better. But because they're taking care of everyone else, they don't have it to give to themselves. And we want to reverse that process. We want to say, hey, wait a second, before you can take care of your family, before you can take care of your employees and your other families that whose homes you clean, we need you to take care of yourself first. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, you cannot possibly have the bandwidth to take care of other people. And it becomes really important, going back to what you said about not pushing the meditation and the spirituality and the exercise and the inner focus off to the side. It's not letting that drift by the wayside, but really regaining that and capturing it and claiming it and saying, hey, wait a second, this is my life. And I'm going to live my life to the best that I can by doing the best I can for myself. So I then can, in turn, going back to your whole focus, is what are you creating that will leave a legacy? Who are you today that will then duplicate itself after you're gone? And so if you can create the best version of yourself, you're then in a way better position to help other people.
You know, that's a great question. We should be asking ourselves all through the day, all through our experiences, am I responding to this situation with the best version of myself? Because we would act differently a lot of times if we were really asking ourselves that question. And there's a concept that has come down through the wisdom literature of the ages that that sort of emphasizes the point that we're not a body that has a spirit. We're actually a spirit that's utilizing a body. And our real essence, our reality, is our spiritual reality. And our body is just a vehicle. For example, doctors don't heal us. Doctors can mend us. They can sew us together. They can cut things out of us. They can do what they do, and those things are really important sometimes. But it's the body that actually heals itself. It's the body that puts forth the enzymes and the hormones and gets the scar tissue in the right place. And our body is the thing that really heals us. And so we need to be really in tune with how our body is integrating with our spiritual reality, because that wisdom that's leading and guiding us behind the scenes would keep us healthy, would tell us what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, what herbs are necessary, what healing processes are necessary. And when we feel good and we're healthy, and when we have a lot of energy, and when we're excited about things, and when we're accomplishing things, and we feel good about ourselves, life is really different. And we'll find that if we're in sync with the Spirit and with how things are flowing in the universal creation of things, life will be very, very different for us. A lot of times we try to swim upstream. We try to go through doors that are closed.
That's me. I've done that my whole life. I try to do it Angela's way, and oftentimes that just doesn't work so well.
A lot of times we don't have energy because we expend our energy doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And for example, like you were mentioning, if you just sit on the couch and watch television, you're not going to have a lot of energy. But if you're out running and moving your body and doing things that enable those systems to operate as they were designed, that's when you feel the energy and you get your second wind and you experience a totally different reality. So being in tune with those things is really, really critically important.
How do you know if you are in tune?
Well, there's a concept called proprioception. And proprioception is when you're feeling really, really well, when you feel energy, when you get up and you feel light on your feet and you feel balanced and you feel like everything is working. It's effortless to walk. It's effortless to do the things that you're doing. You just feel good. That's a proprioceptive insight into whether your life is really in tune with what it's supposed to be. Whenever you feel a negative flow of energy, if you're frustrated or if you don't have energy or you're not getting along with people or any myriad of things, it's a sign to you that things are out of whack and that you're not in tune with that intelligent reality within you. And you should always be operating from the intelligent wisdom and spirit inside of you. There's an old scriptural saying that says the kingdom of heaven is within you. And everything, a kingdom has everything. It has its own laws, its own statutes, its own ways of doing everything. That's within us. And if we take the time through prayer, through meditation, through pondering, through breathing, through all of these different techniques to attune ourselves to that force that's within us, we would experience a very, very different life. Every time we interact with anyone, there's an exchange of energy. And if you're around people who are giving you positive energy, who are supporting you, who are encouraging you, you are attracted to being around those kind of people. And if you can give the same thing to them, if you can encourage them and inspire them and give them a smile or a tap on the back and say, man, I really appreciate what you're doing. Or if you clean a house and they say, this house is so wonderful after you're through cleaning. I just feel it's a different spirit. That's really what life is designed to be, is an exchange of positive energy. And there are some people who will suck your energy. They have very negative energy. They have low self-esteem. They're frustrated. There's a high incidence in our society today of suicides, where people just lose hope and they lose the will to move forward and to excel and to accomplish things. And so there are people that will just suck your energy because they don't have any of their own, or they have negative energy.
You know, I agree with you. And I found myself, I kid you not, I found myself in ads that I would put out looking to hire new people, that we are a drama-free workplace. And I literally put that in my ads. Like, if you have drama and you're a theatrical person that flies off the handle, you can't come work for us. And I find it because there's so much that sucks life's energy every day, that when you hire people that are just these Debbie Downers and life just is a rain cloud, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to be around people like that. And I'm related to by marriage, I'm related to some people like that. And I was speaking to a therapist recently, and where you go back to the moment where you said the highest version of ourselves needs to communicate with other people, he put it down in really clinical terms. He said, who is the adult in the room? And I was like, wait a minute, what does that mean? And he said, well, you're acting like a bratty child and you're throwing a tantrum because these people aren't behaving the way you want them to behave. And he said, are you being a bratty child, or are you being the adult in the room? And I was like, whoa. I'm being the bratty child. And he said, so it's your responsibility then to decide to be the adult in the room. You get to control the energy in the room. And I was like, and it seems like a lot more responsibility, but it goes back to where we don't hire people with drama. I don't want it in my life. We don't have it in our house. And I made the mistake. I hate this, but I made the mistake when I hire people. I always have them come to my house, because interviewing people for house cleaning, I like to say, hey, how would you clean this? How would you clean this? And I like to give them scenarios. I told them, when you come to my house, leave your bad energy out on the porch. I got 2 plants there. Leave your bad energy there and come on in. My plants died. I had these beautiful trees right on the front of my house, and they died. I'm like, oh my gosh, the negative energy killed my trees. So I had to tell people, keep your negative energy. Don't even bring it on the property, right? And I never replaced the trees. I felt so guilty. I'm like, negative energy killed my trees. But I think it's a conscious effort. I think it's a really conscious effort, like you said, every single day as you go through the day, to stop drifting aimlessly and to pay attention to the energy that you are receiving and giving.
Well, that takes us back to Masaru Emoto again. If you use negative words, negative thoughts, negative inner dialogue with yourself, it's actually going to create a reality that you don't want to experience.
Mm.
And a lot of people try to run away from the reality that they don't want to experience, but they're actually creating that reality through their self-talk and through the words and ideas that they have. If you want to transform your world, you need to transform your way of thinking, transform your way of speaking. If you want to have positive interactions with people, then you need to put forth positive input into that interaction. And so we create our reality a lot more than we think we do, the reality that we experience. There is, which is our subject today, there is an intelligence and a spirit of eternal wisdom available to us. And we need to be in tune with that all of the time. Whenever we interact with people, whenever we are working on a job. For example, if you're doing a cleaning job like doing the dishes, a lot of people don't like to do the dishes. A little off subject, but in our home in the early days, we had trouble getting the kids to do the dishes.
I'm guilty of that. I hated to
And
clean
so
growing up. I skipped all the chores I possibly could without getting in trouble. Look at
so
me
one
now. It caught
day
up to me.
one day I sort of tuned into this inner wisdom. I'll call it that. And so I asked all of the children, I said, "Do you enjoy doing the dishes?" No. "Do you enjoy doing the dishes?" No. I went right down the line. Nobody enjoyed doing the dishes. And so I had this epiphany. I said, "Why don't we do away with the dishes?" And so we divided the family up into teams that sat on benches. And the mother and the father would each run a team. And we would have a bowl. Each one of us would have a bowl of food, and we would feed everybody on that team.
I hated that.
Well, it worked really, really well. When we got through with a meal, there were 2 bowls and 2 spoons to do. And after a while, the dishes didn't seem like they were. Actually, if you live in a house with 19 children, that's 21 people, you have lots of dishes. And dishes can be a real chore. But the point behind all of this is if you have a chore that you don't like, your challenge is to change your attitude to the point that you actually look forward to doing the job and you actually enjoy it. You
Stop
have
right there
the
for a second. You said two things that I don't want to miss. Go back really quick to the feeding us on teams. I hated that. But one of the things that I learned as a result from that is that when you shove your face full of food really fast, you don't actually taste it and you don't enjoy it. Talking about being awakened. When there are 6 or 12 people that are sitting in a line and you only get a bite every 6 or 7 seconds after everybody gets a turn, every bite tastes magnificent. And you're like, wow, that was really yummy. And it's like your taste buds had a chance to quickly recover. And now you're like, whoa, here's my next bite again. And it actually made the food taste better. And because of that, I slowed my eating process down so that when I'm eating, I'm not just cramming my face with food, but eating slowly so that I actually taste the food. The second thing,
well,
well, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
The second thing was that you were talking about the state that we're in and how you had 2 bowls and two plates, and that you created a new system. What's really important, I think, is that you were willing to stop and analyze. Here's just a modern day, everyday situation in our home that no one is wanting to participate in, and instead of just grounding us or nagging or what most parents resort to, where they just give up and they're like, our kids aren't cooperating. You said, let's try a dynamically different approach. And by having a dynamically different approach, you then came back to the place where people are like, hey, I guess it's not so bad after all. We'll help do the dishes. And so you were willing to try something completely different in order to get what you got in the end, which was the end result of everybody pitching in to help out with the dishes.
And kind of going along with the epiphany, there was actually a reality behind that whole process that was important. And in my further studies, at the time I didn't realize the impact, but in my further studies, I found that there's an energy called prana, or some call it chi, and it's in our food and it's in the air we breathe. But because of the way we eat, we don't really extract all of the energy or the prana out of the food. And because of the way we breathe, we don't really extract the energy or the prana out of the air that we breathe. And so we just get enough prana to keep us alive, and we're not very energetic, and we're kind of disappointed with ourselves, our reality. But there's an inner reality that says, wait, if you eat knowingly and appreciate your food and digest it properly and eat slowly and mindfully, you begin to extract more and more of the prana out of the food. If you breathe consciously, rhythmically, under control, you begin to extract more of the prana or the energy out of the air that you breathe. And so if you do everything mindfully and the proper way, through the proper intelligent process, life is just different. You experience things on a totally different level. And it's that spiritual reality behind you that guides you in everything that you do. Simple things like breathing and eating, which a lot of times we do mindlessly. But if we look at it through that spiritual dimension, those things can be very, very productive for us.
Speaking of breathing, and I bring this up because growing up in a house with 19 kids, and I'm the fourth to the oldest, I had 15 younger brothers and sisters. And growing up in this house, there's a new baby every year. And when you have a colicky baby that's just crying and screaming and whatever, they would always bring the baby to me. And they would call me the baby whisperer because I could get the baby to stop crying just like that. And my magical technique was all through breathing. I would put the baby up next to my chest, and I would consciously slow my breathing down as slow as I could. And in a state where there's lots of chaos or there's stuff going on, it's easy for a little baby to get stressed out because they don't have all the life skills where they're able to cope with a lot of that. So they'll cry and they'll fuss. And I would just put them up against my chest so they could feel my heartbeat and they could feel the rhythm of my breathing. And I would slow my breathing down so slowly that they felt really calm. And they would quickly go to sleep. And people are like, how did you do that? How did you do that? And as the aunt, I have lots of my nieces and nephews that were handed to me at family reunions. And I'll sit there during the whole reunion, slowing my breathing down with these little babies that are all fussy. And it's literally just a breathing technique. So
Yeah, it's fun to be aware of those kinds of things. There's just this field of limitless possibilities that surround us all of the time. And we limit ourselves in so many ways. Someone said, we are eternal, knowledgeable, spiritual beings living lives of mediocrity. So our true self is really a dynamic, energetic reality that we need to tune into. It's sort of like on the computer or on a television, you have all different kinds of channels to choose from. And you can turn your channel to whatever you want to experience. You can watch a horror movie. You can watch a soap opera. You can watch a seminar. You can watch a religious presentation. You can choose what you want to experience. And that's the same way with our lives. We can choose to be on the frequencies, on the channels that give us the result that we want to experience. And so if we're choosing if we're choosing grunge or heavy metal music, that's a reflection of the frequency that we're on. There's a principle called like attracts like. And so if you like something, it's because you're tuned to that frequency. And we should ask ourselves the question, what should I like? What would make me the best version of myself? What would I be if I could be the very, very best that I could be? How would that person respond to this circumstance? And so we need to be aware of the things that we enjoy, the things that we listen to, the things that we watch, what our entertainment is, all of those things are an insight into what we're resonating. And if we're on the wrong channel, we need to change the channel. And we have the capability of doing that, taking control of ourselves. And it takes a real strong discipline to move away from something that you like and something that you enjoy to something better.
Well, and as a business owner, sometimes I get really stressed out. I look at things my employee did and they're just shenanigans. I'm like, well, what is happening? And sometimes I get really flustered and I'll go to bed at night and I don't sleep, or I toss and turn and I'm just getting bad sleep and I'm angry with myself for not being able to resolve something in a quicker or more efficient sort of way. And I found that guided meditation will help me go back to sleep, and it will help me reset the tone that I'm experiencing. How you talk about turning a frequency. I know that sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I am on the wrong frequency. I do not know what's happening in my head, but I can't get away from myself and I can't sleep and I'm angry and I'm flustered and I want to go back to sleep and I only have 2 hours before I have to get up. I will literally put on a guided meditation tape to have it walk me through and kind of calm me down and reset my brain, so that when I wake up in the morning, I can then, like you said, pop out of bed like toast and I'm light on my feet and I'm back to myself again, because the next day is depending on me being the best version of myself. How do you reset yourself when you're kind of at odds with the world around you?
Oh, I use all kinds of techniques. I try to surround myself with, like I say, people that encourage and uplift me. Every night when I go to sleep, I have a period of meditation, and then I use the solfeggio frequencies, and there are different frequencies, like 963 hertz is called the God frequency, and 528 is the love frequency.
Where
And
do
there are
I get
different,
those frequencies?
they're all available on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Uh, you can just put in whatever frequency you want, or what you can ask what frequencies are available, and you can get lists of frequencies.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But I always sleep with a frequency playing, and I found that if I like to do affirmations. I actually take affirmations a step further. I call them pro actions, where you're actually putting into your belief system the program that you want to run. Affirmation is kind of like a nice suggestion, where you're telling your subconscious mind, gee, this would be nice if I'm slim and I'm flexible, and you tell yourself nice things. But it's a little different story to sit down and say, okay, subconscious mind, I want you to listen to me. This is my new truth and my new reality. I am losing weight until I get to my ideal weight. I am flexible. That's my new truth and my new reality. And you put these pro-actions into your belief system. And the truth and reality that you put into your belief system should be the highest light and knowledge that you understand, so that you want to be the very, very best version of yourself. And so you tell yourself what you are going to be, not what you want to be, but what you're going to be. This is my new program that runs. I am this, I am that. That's my new truth, my new reality. Now, subconscious mind, higher self, you take that to the bank.
Speaking of taking that to the bank, what would it take for us to get you to create one of those go to sleep tapes for us?
Uh, I actually created one for myself, where I did my affirmations, and I put on the solfeggio frequencies in the background, because that integrates with your brain on a different level. And I have an intention of making some of that available on this website. So soon to be, those proactions, at least my take on what some good proactions would be, will be available.
I created a sleep tape that we listen to every night, and it is a tape on, it's called the new tape, and it was designed for house cleaners because as house cleaners, we're cleaning houses all day and we are playing tapes over and over in our head. And it's easy to get caught in a social media phase where somebody said something unkind to us, or we had a fight with a mother-in-law or something like that. And you're playing these tapes over and over in your head, and it's just not productive and it's only negative. And so the new tape is something that overrides that. And so as you listen to it, it says they're affirmations. They're the feel good things that say, I am drinking more water and I'm hydrated and I have more energy and I'm cleaning and I'm, my house is tidy and I love the environment that I'm in. It doesn't say this is my new version of myself, which I would love that added element. And I would love the added element of the frequency because there's just no sound at all. There's no music. It's just a voice. But what I noticed was just listening to that out loud as we went to sleep at night. And I listened to it because it was, I mean, I believe it. I created it, but I believe it. It's what I listen to at night myself. But I turn it loud enough that my husband, who also shares the same bed with me, can also hear it. And he started drinking a whole lot more water and he started exercising. And he's like, I don't know why I'm doing all these new things that I didn't do before. And I'm like, oh, it's awesome that, at an unconscious level, it's kicking in. And so, yeah, we listen to that every night, but with the sound of your voice, love the sound of your voice and your proactive affirmations. I would love to have your tape to listen to as I sleep at night. I would love to help make that happen for you.
Well, we're actually in the process of doing that, so soon that will be available.
All right. I'm going to leave links in the show notes to the new tape now. And then as soon as Omoogn's tape comes out, we will replace that link with his link because I want you guys to hear that tape. I want to hear it. I'm excited. I would love to hear that as I sleep at night. What parting thoughts would you give us if we were going to pursue awakening in our lives and we were going to go from a state of absent-mindedness to a state of awareness and awakening?
Well, we have to understand that we are basically, if you tear everything down, we are programmed energy. We are resonating at a certain frequency. And that frequency is the summation of everything that we are. And so we need to look at all of the characteristics that this course that we're going through it brings those things to our awareness. And we need to consciously work on those things. But practicing gratitude will raise our frequency. Engage in positive thinking. Be aware of your self-talk, whether you're negative, whether you're discouraged, whether energy is flowing in a negative direction. Turn it around and send it in the direction that you want it to go. Tell yourself that you're energetic instead of I don't have any energy. Tell yourself that you feel really well instead of, oh, I'm really having a bad day today. Tell yourself that you're having a really good day. Surround yourself with positivity, with slogans and signs and quotation cards and whatever you need to keep you constantly aware of what you're trying to accomplish and where you want to be. Another good thing is to engage in acts of kindness. Go out of your way to interact with people in a positive way. Make them smile, make them happy. Lend somebody a helping hand. Do something that will cheer somebody up. Or share empathy with someone who's sad or whatever it might be. But interact with people with acts of kindness. And you brought up a good one, which is connecting with nature. If you look at the way nature works and all of her systems and all of the interactions and how everything is interconnected and how the water is produced and it comes down as rain and waters everything and things grow. Growing a garden, being the natural processes of things are so impactful. Listening to uplifting music. There's music that actually soothes us and creates a strong crystalline structure in our water molecules. And there's music that tears all of that apart. So listen to good music and be aware of that. And of course, behind everything, there's this spiritual connection. there is a God, there is a divine entity that has created everything, that has a blueprint for everything. And when everything is operating according to that blueprint, everything turns out better. Creation flourishes. It's like having a garden with all of the nutrients and all of the water and all of the things that are necessary. Your garden will flourish. So I know we're out of time, but those are some things that we can do.
I love this. I just love this. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing with us your wisdom. I really appreciate this because as we go on this journey, I can't help going through each of these lessons week by week and not start looking at different areas of my life in a little bit different way. So this has been really, really helpful. And next week, our topic is on awareness. And so we get to talk a little bit more about awareness and how that applies to our lives. So that is page 57 through page 63. So if you haven't already, this is a great opportunity to pick up your copy of the Live with Impact series, which is the insights of wisdom of Omuugn. And this is volume 1, and also volume 2 is out now. So you can also get volume 2 if you like at the same time. But I really want to thank you guys for joining us today. This was really insightful. I really enjoy this time together. I just cherish it and look forward to it every week. And I want to thank you so much, those of you that joined us live, and also Omuugn.
Well, thank you for making it possible.
All right, we'll see you again, same time, same place next week.